Hello and good evening to another and rather different late night Looby and Bell Chatbox production show. It's gonna be different. It's gonna be audience led. We're gonna facilitate some great conversations. Oh my goodness, live, unscripted. Here we are, my friend. How you doing?
Yeah, good evening, Nick. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us, wherever you're tuning in from around the world. As Nick said, we've got a bit of a different show this evening. For those that have been joining us over the past months throughout this year, the late night show, we've tended to brought a number of different guests on, like we do with our business breakfast show. Business breakfast show, 8 o'clock in the morning tomorrow, Thursday mornings. And we have a number of guests that come on and share some secrets, maybe, a little bit about their business, what they get up to. And the late night show is all about finding out what business owners typically get up to behind closed doors. What happens when they go home at night? And we had lots of great guests on. But tonight, what we thought we'd do, Nick and I are going to dive in behind our closed doors. We're going to tell you a little bit about what we get up to when businesses go home. And of course, we always want your interaction, your involvement. If you've got a question, you can use that chat box, pop it into the comments. We'll see that. We might share it. We'll give you a shout out. We'll tell the world that you're watching. If you want to tell us what your business does, we'll mention that as well. So yeah, a little bit different tonight. We're going to be here for about half an hour this evening. And we're going to be talking through lots of things. But we're going to focus on one element tonight, Nick. We decided what was quite important was about startup businesses. And, when did you start your business? How did you start your business? How did you finance it, fund it? How's it grown? How's it developed over maybe the last few months, maybe the last few years or last few decades? And we're more interested if you're a pandemic startup as well. Have you launched your business in the last sort of 18 to 20 months during the pandemic? Maybe you got possibly made redundant. Maybe you had to pivot and change. So we're interested to understand what you've been up to and what it is that you're doing.
And how can we help? How can our global audience assist you in this journey? And oddly enough, mate, if you're an entrepreneur and you're running businesses, and you and I run more than one, the idea of coming home and switching off doesn't really happen, does it? There's no real off switch. It's not like you work 9 to 5 for someone else, you close the door and you forget about it. I know that's more and more rare now, even if you work for someone else. But you're never really away from your business. It's quite tricky trying to separate yourself from the workings and machinations of all things business. Sometimes it's quite lonely, right, running a business, but it's odd because you're never really switched off. You ever switch off?
No, it's very hard to switch off, I think when you're running your own businesses, again, look, here's a question. If you're watching this, do you switch off? Because I don't find I ever really do switch off. I always find that in the back of your mind, there's something. Don't get me wrong. I can put the tools down. I can look at my phone for personal reasons and not necessarily for business reasons. But quite often I'll see an email coming. I think, let's have a quick peek. And then I kind of think, does that need a response there and then? Is it going to be better for me to respond now, even if it's just with a holding mail back and say, got it, thanks, I'll be on that in the morning. So I think as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, as someone that's kind of in charge of your own destiny, I don't know if you can totally switch off unless you throw all the tech away and you go and isolate in the middle of the mountains somewhere where you can't be contacted, you don't have connectivity, and then you can focus on something different. It's about balance. That's what I think you've got to try and get. I think it's very hard to switch off, but I'd love to know what people think themselves. Do you?
Didn't Steve Jobs used to go into the countryside and turn on, have time with his thoughts. Right? I think, oddly enough, I think that is a massive value to any business if you can find some time to separate yourself from the business and think afresh. I know it seems very difficult in the reality of things. Maybe it's easy enough for someone like Steve Jobs, maybe not. But yeah, I think there's real value in it if you can create enough space between that kind of your head's full of what's going on and I need a fresh thoughts.
Yeah, Lee Strachan has wrapped it up in one word. Here we go. Nope. There you go, Lee Strachan. runs a very successful IT company, doesn't switch off, or is suggesting there by his note he doesn't switch off either. And I do think, it's quite hard to detach yourself. Don't get me wrong. I think, you can spend time in the family or doing your hobbies or your interests, but there's always that little bit of you running a business that sits there at the back of your mind that, yeah, I've got to do that tomorrow, or what about this, or what about that? Different maybe, and again, not to offend anybody, but if you're employed, you're working within an organisation, depending on what you do and what level you're at as well. I think it's a lot easier to switch off. I'm not suggesting this day and age, I don't think you can go home, shut the door at 5 o'clock and just kind of get away from it and not worry about it till 9 o'clock the next morning when you kind of start work again. If you do that, let us know. Do you go home and just totally switch off at 5 p.m. or whatever time it is you knock off?
If that's the case, they're not watching us, are they? They're watching, not as good, right? Not as good, but they're probably watching something on Netflix. I don't know. Is the Jungle on right now? Are they watching the Jungle?
No idea. Is the Jungle on?
No, we're too busy concentrating on business.
So yeah, I think that here, as a business owner, as someone that's trying to build a business, develop a business, I think it's quite hard to detach and switch off. I think you're focusing, certainly in startup stage as well, early on, and pizzas in the office. If you're working from an office, or even if you're working from your home office, pizzas turn up, sleeping on the sofa, you Red Bull, you're putting a lot of time and a lot of effort into it. And obviously that takes a lot of you, takes a lot out of you as well to be that focused. Are you doing a good job by doing it? There is an argument, by the way, that actually you should get away from everything and you're going to be better focused when you come back fresh. But
it doesn't sound too healthy, does it? Sleeping on the sofa, eating in your office, it doesn't sound like a healthy mix. And especially if you as entrepreneurs can't really switch off, what if business is not going very well? Right, that must drag into every aspect of your world, right? Carrying that around with you constantly. One of the reasons the last 18 months, incredibly difficult for a lot of businesses, because it's been a struggle. And if you can't switch off, you can't close the door and leave it behind. You're getting into everything. That's getting into all your relationships, your friends, your hobbies. It's infiltrating. That's tough.
And how do you switch off? What is it that allows you to kind of close off that business brain and focus on something else? I find I love a good film. I don't watch as many films as I used to, but I like a film, and that is kind of my virtual reality world where I can focus on a film, get really into a good film with the good quality sound, great picture, and get kind of engrossed. And at that point, I kind of switch off from the outside world. I'm now, and some people, it'll be reading a good book, be a book.
It is
really good book. Yeah. So we're all different how we can control those emotions and what switches us on and off. But I'd love to know what it is you do.
So let's assume, right? We've got a lovely audience, and thank you, Lee. I love you summing this up in the throw stuff in the ocean and walk away from it. Let's assume, right? We've got your business going. It's been going for however long. Okay, what right now, towards the end of 2021, what are the big hurdles? What are the big challenges that you're facing? How do you overcome those? Or, right, how do you get the business going in the first place? You ever been in the pub, mate? Right, you've had a few beers with your mates, and you've struck upon a great idea. Oh, it's amazing, right? You as the beers flow, the idea gets better and better, and you think as though you could conquer the world, and then the light of the next day appears, and for whatever reason, the idea doesn't seem as good or as solid or as watertight. Ever been there?
Yeah, quite a few times actually. I think that is the thing is when you go out with be it friends, business acquaintances, you have a drink or two, and you come up with all these wacky ideas. And actually, in quite a lot of cases, they're pretty really good ideas. The problem is if you have a few too many of those, you go to bed, wake up the next morning, you've forgotten all the really good bits. They've just kind of all disappeared and vanished. That's why notepad, pen is really good. But how many people do you see sitting in a pub discussing business ideas? Just note that one down. Hang on a second. It doesn't quite often happen. Funny enough, Nick, We're out on Friday night. We're going out for a beer and a curry with some other business friends, and I'm sure there'll be some great ideas that come up that night as well.
There should be. I know beer mats. You don't seem to get as many beer mats as you used to. I reckon on the back of a beer mat there should be space to write your business idea. And there probably is beer mats out there. Let us know, audience. Are there beer mats out there that have space for business idea, outline, whatever it is? On Friday, mate, is a challenge for us. We ought to take pen and a bit of paper. Right, we'll have some business minds around the table. Let's see if we can come up with a new business idea, right, that stands the test of time. In other words, still sounds good next day.
That sounds like a challenge that I'm willing to accept. How about we see if we can fix the world in one night? It always seems really probable and very doable at the time you're having a glass of wine or a beer or whatever your tipple is, because you can put the world to rights at that point, can't you? You can solve absolutely everything. It's just whether we can make it stick the next day. I've got some notes here. If we're talking about COP26, it has mixed reviews, by the way, just to let you know that. The COP26 summit with no deal would have been the worst possible results, according to the United Nations Climate Secretary, who called the outcome a good compromise. Hey, we want to save the world here, but we'll just compromise on a few bits and pieces.
So we're doing that already, right? That idea. What can we do? Right. Yeah. Let the powers that be have their discussions. But what can we actually do? That idea was one that cropped up in discussion, and we're running with it.
Yeah.
Right. So a great idea is a great idea. Okay. By all means, prod it, test it, bend it, try and break it. And ideas these days go through many iterations. Okay. That one, we're on it.
We are. Yeah. Let's just spill the beans on this a little bit. It's very early days. We've mentioned it a few times in the past. We said something big is coming, and it is. Wheels are in motion firmly. We're meeting up every week with a team around us to launch next year. And we don't have the exact date at the moment. We're aiming for middle of June time, probably summer solstice. And we're going to be launching StreamAid Live, which is going to be the first 24-hour live stream with great guests, great hosts, lots of meaningful conversation, beaming around the world on a global basis to see if we can change the world together. And it's about bringing small businesses together. And it's the small things that make the big things happen. We don't have the power and the clout, Nick, to go into COP and, make all these things happen. But what we have got the power and the ability to do is to use our network, to use our reach, to bring everybody together, to do small things to create big differences. And that's what we're going to do next year. And lots of it will start to unfold in the next coming weeks and early new year. There'll be a lot more stuff out there to kind of circulate and invite you to be part of it. That's not you, Nick. That's everybody, as in you.
Absolutely right. It's going to be massive, mate. Massive, hugely important, and it's something for everyone. Right? What small changes can businesses make that will ultimately lead to a big difference? And that idea, okay, it's typical business idea. Here's an idea. Wouldn't that be great? Yeah. How do we make it happen? Well, I tell you what we need. We need other people who know more about it than we do. And I think this is one of the mistakes that business owners make, right? They try and do everything themselves, right? It's my idea. I don't want to tell anyone, very protective over it. For so many business owners, if you ask them what their biggest kind of mistake in the early days was, not reaching out to someone who knows what they're doing early enough, right? Seeking help from those people that know what they're talking about.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. Surround yourself with great people. And that's really important because it's those people that are going to bring, a diverse strategy to what it is that you're trying to do. We can't be great at everything. We can't be a perfectionist at all the things that we do, but we can surround ourselves with those people that can bring an element of that to the table. And that's where I think, great partnerships, great synergies really make things happen. And that's what we're experiencing with StreamAid Live. We're bringing the best of the best to the table to make things happen. And we'll talk more about that. There's a great podcast that's in the process. It'll be launched very, very soon. And it kind of tells the story, how it began and where we're taking it. So watch out for that. Once we get it out there and launch, we'll share all the details with you here on Chatbox.
Actually, talking about, reaching out to people that know more than you do, experts in your field. Did you catch any of Boris's talk at the big business talk? Lee summed it up for us. It's Peppa Pig, mate. That's the answer. Rattling on, right? Our Prime Minister rattling on like a blooming loon about all things Peppa Pig. Well,
Well,
I like to think us business owners will reach out for people that actually know what they're talking about. What was going on with that?
I don't know, but we could really kind of split the audience a bit here. Do you like Boris? Do you think he's a good Prime Minister? Do you think he should be ousted now and replaced? And who would you replace him with? Who would do a better job? And, do you think you could do a better job? Do you think Peppa Pig could do a better job than Boris?
What was going on with that talk, mate?
I don't know.
I read a report, and it's not very complimentary, right? He got lost along the way, and it seemed all over the place. And then a journalist interviewed him afterwards, and I think the first thing the journalist asked, "Is everything all right?" he was that all at sea. And the problem is, you want in any business, right? You want decent leadership, right? You want to be able to make some decisions. And most small businesses, right? You are the cleaner and the leader at the same time. Okay, you're trying to do everything, but you've got to be strong leading with your idea. Okay, I don't see that in the Peppa Pig fiasco. But no doubt, right? No doubt, our businesses, every single business that we've been involved in, would have benefited from strong kind of advice and leadership early on. And we've got all those kind of people around us now. That network, is really healthy. But in the early days, you just don't know where to turn.
I hear quite often when I'm supporting and working with SMEs, that's small to medium-sized enterprises, that it's confusing. When you're launching a business, you're a startup, or actually, you could be a more established business. You could have been going years, but the landscape is confusing. What am I entitled to? What grants are out there? And there is experts out there that can help you, but there's no real signposting. There's no kind of dedicated place to go to bring all this content and information together, where it's simple for businesses of all sizes, all shapes, okay, to get all that knowledge and experience in one place. And that's what I think businesses in the UK are missing. It's not just the leadership. I mean, Peppa Pig, could lead extremely well, but it's bringing everything together. Everything's just all over the place. And this is I hear this all the time. Lots of business organisations, such as the Federation of Small Businesses, which I kind of wear a volunteering hat for. They're talking about it all the time. There needs to be this kind of ruffle up. Things need to be kind of set up better, because it is a confusing landscape for startup and more established organisations. I mean, that could be the challenge we talk about on Friday nights, and how we're going to make that work. It's a big job, but maybe, we come up with a plan, Nick.
There's some good books, right, that will steer in the right direction, certainly early days. Right? The emyth, for example, great book, kind of gives you a really kind of healthy and sensible steer around how to turn something that you're in theory good at into an actual business. But yeah, you're right. It's a very convoluted path with many twists and turns and lots of wrong directions, and plenty of people around each corner trying to sell you something, right? Sell you advice when you don't necessarily need advice. You just need pointing in the right direction. It's tough. It's surprising that businesses get off the ground in the first place and then make a go of it. I guess from the general public's point of view, what you see about kind of startup businesses, I guess it's Dragon's Den, right? And those people with all the money, either looking down on people or ridiculing them, or saying, actually, that's a good idea. I'm gonna buy it off you, essentially. But but for most businesses, it's grinding out. You know, what is it I'm doing? How do I make a living out of it? How do I sell it? Great when you did the first sale. Do you remember your first sale, mate, in business?
Yeah, pretty much actually. Yeah, I can. I was 16 years old. Well, no, that's not the truth. My first official sale, I was 7 years old. That's where my entrepreneurial journey begun, and I might have shared this story in the past with a few people. I do use it as part of a talk that I give, my beginning of my entrepreneurial journey. But I was obviously living with my parents, so I wasn't old enough to have a mortgage and live elsewhere at the time, of course. And I put a paddling pool in the back garden when I was 7 years old. It was a hot summer's day, filled it full of ice cold water. And I invited all my friends. I lived on one of those long streets, 100 houses down each side, lots of like similar age friends. I invited them all in for the day during the summer holidays to come and use the paddling pool. And I also had a rope over the paddling pool and a slide. And I did one of those slippery slides as well, a bit of polythene, fairy liquid on it down the garden. Fantastic fun. And I charged them all 20 pence each to come in and use the facilities. That was my first. That's when I first. It's serious. It's when I first learned about making money.
I can't believe that you were 7 years old. You made a water park.
Yeah, well, it was a small water park. I mean, it wasn't your splash landings or anything like that, but it was pretty impressive. But I learned another very valuable lesson that day as well. Firstly, you need to seek permission, okay? Because things don't always go. So you're building a business, you have to get permissions and grants into place to to do certain things. Well, what happened is obviously my mum at the time kind of looked out and saw that the garden was full of lots of kids. And I will say I got shouted at and I got a bit of an ear bashing for it. The next minute she told me to get everybody out. Well, of course, I turfed everybody out. And my next lesson is I realised that sometimes in life you have to just cough up and I had to refund them all their 20 pence pieces. So the lesson was I made money, I had to give it back to keep customer service at the height and make them all happy. God's honest truth, that was my first entrepreneurial story of life.
That, my friend, is a rags to riches story, a Netflix special, surely. Of I can just imagine a bit of Coldplay music in the background. Lots of 20p's changing hands, and then it all turning a little bit sour. Yeah, as the water park, the Bell Water Park has to close early. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So there you go. So look, businesses start from ideas. And not necessarily great ideas. Sometimes they just start through, as you said, Nick, a conversation. Could be at a pub. It could be, at home with friends, and you're just talking through. And quite often, what happens, it's around a problem, isn't it? Oh, why doesn't someone come up with an idea to fix this? Cha-ching! And all of a sudden, you've got you're putting together the next, amazing idea to fix the problem that's been spoken about. And of course, things all go a bit skew if at that time when you're discussing it and great ideas and you forget about how much money you might need to launch. How much money do you need to start a business, and when is the best time to start a business? When's the best time to start?
I love that idea that if you come up with a business idea that solves a problem, you're onto a winner. Because if you've had a problem with it, the chances are a lot of people have had a problem with it. There must be loads of businesses, mate. I'm going to challenge you now to think of a business that think, there was a problem, they solved that problem. Businesses either seem to be solving a problem or some innovative thing that you didn't know you needed, and there it is, and think, oh Christ, how do I live without that beforehand?
Quite often when I work with startup businesses, I always say to them, it's very hard in this day and age to come up with something niche, something that hasn't been done before. What you've got to do now is look at how you can make it better, how you can innovate the idea. It's not about price, it's not about undercutting somebody, selling it cheaper. I stack it high, sell it low, because that might work for a little bit, but all you're doing is just cutting the margins all the time. That's not going to help you. It's not going to help anybody else in business. And I always say to, startups, if when they look at the idea stage, if you come up with a great idea and it is unique, come along and I will invest in you. Because I don't believe in this day and age, there's that many ultra unique ideas. We don't hear about something being totally unique, totally new, totally different. I'm always searching, as most people will be, for the next Apple, something that's totally fresh, totally different, totally innovative. But they don't come around very often. They're few and far between. Most people will have competition. Competition is healthy. I always say build relationships with your competition, because you never know, they might be perfect partners and perfect people to work with or together. And don't cut your bridges and turn around and say, well, they're competition, I'm going to, bash them out of the park, or, whatever it's going to be, because actually they could be very complementary to what you're doing or what you're offering.
That's a very good point, mate. I think a lot of people, they start their business with a mindset of scarcity. Right? There's only so much to go around. I've got to grab what I can. It turns out that scarcity, not a realistic view, as there's typically enough to go around. You just have to be good enough to get noticed, and your solution is right for enough people. I don't think you need to worry so much about the competition. Just be magical you. And some of the conversations we'll be having tomorrow on the breakfast show, we have some angel investors on. So a lot of these thoughts we can bounce off them and say, well, what are you looking for in a business? How do you find the funding to launch that great idea? Is it Dragon's Den, or are there other options for the rest of us?
Let's just talk about the breakfast show tomorrow, Nick. So we've got a great array lineup of guests coming into the virtual studio tomorrow.
Oh, yes.
8 o'clock tomorrow morning. So that's 8 o'clock Thursday morning. We're kicking off. That's GMT time. So we'll be here fresh and ready with our breakfast bowl of cornflakes, maybe Weetabix and beans. If you haven't seen that episode, by the way, do go back to one of our early episodes where Nick has Weetabix and beans for breakfast. It was quite a fun, different episode. But yeah, we're back here tomorrow morning, Thursday morning, 8 o'clock. And we're going to be joined by 5 guests tomorrow. So we've got John Stenhouse and Josh Clark. Yeah, John Stenhouse and Josh Clark joining us first off in the studio from about between 5 and 10 past 8. They're on behalf of University Essex. They're talking about startups. They're talking about raising finance. They're talking about angel investments. Lots of great tips, lots of great information will be coming from that conversation tomorrow. We're then joined by Helen Lewis, Emma Gilson, and Sue Ray after hour, where we're going to be whisked off on a bit more of a magical tour as well. We'll be learning a lot more about consulting and about supporting, and bringing more diversity into our businesses. So really exciting, great breakfast show lined up tomorrow morning, not to be missed. So get that in your diary now. If you're not like this, subscribe to this show. You'll get the thumbs up when we go live. The bell will ring if you're watching us on YouTube. Of course, you can watch us on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter as well.
It's going to be a great show, mate. Jam-packed with lots of questions, lots of learning, lots of value. And ideally, audience get stuck in to the conversation. Ask all of the questions that you need answering, and we'll bounce those off our lovely guests. And you're right, mate. One of the big challenges for business these days is how do you get the word out, right? And across all these social media platforms. Remember, you used to get a load of junk mail through the door, right? Used to be a potentially useful way to communicate your message to a wide audience. And now junk mail is I think it's called social media. How do you crack that nut? How do you get lots of people to like and subscribe and follow everything you do? You've got to be charming, like you and I, mate. So thank you, audience. Please do all of those things. Just go onto YouTube and subscribe. It'd be great. Make Nick's day. That'd be great. But yeah, another challenge, which I think we'll constantly ask: how do you crack that social media nut?
Yeah, and if you are a social media guru, an expert, someone knows your way around the social platforms, certainly with YouTube as well, we want you. Get in touch. We are looking for someone to help us, certainly starting in the new year, to really put Chatbox onto the big global map. We want someone that can help us manage, run, and maintain our social media reach, but more importantly, help us reach places that other chat shows can't reach. So yeah, get in touch with us, ping us a message. You can email us at hello@chatboxproductions.com, or you can pop a comment into the chat, send a carrier pigeon, however you want to get a message to us and say, yes, David, yes, Nick, we are willing to have a chat with you because we think we can help you. So we're looking for that person to engage with us sooner rather than later, but to start a new campaign come the new year. And finally, if you want to come on to the breakfast show, we still have some availability in December. We've got a couple of shows where we're looking for a few guests to join us in the breakfast hot seat studio. How can you do that? Well, first you can email us as well, hello@chatboxproductions.com, or you can go to the website, all the W's, chatboxproductions.com, and go there and click the sign up to the show, fill in a quick, simple application form, tell us who you are, what you do, what value you can bring, what you can share with our listeners and our viewers. And if it all sounds great, we'll get you on and, well, we'll let you talk about it live on air.
Sounds great, mate. Sounds great. And can you believe time has already run out on us? I've really enjoyed the conversation. Thank you, audience, for your involvement, getting involved in the chat, some of which we've been able to share, some of which we haven't. But yeah, I think it's nice, mate, going forward. Let's share some love, share some value with our fabulous audience.
So we'll see you tomorrow morning, bright and early, bristly toweled, cornflakes in hand, orange juice and coffee, 8 o'clock here, streaming to all channels from the Chatbox studio. Till tomorrow morning. Bye-bye.
Cheerio.